Hello, my name is Uzoma. Welcome to episode 4 of Tomorrow. And today's episode is The Perfect African. And I'm here with my perfect African queen, Reni Folawiyo, who is many things, amongst of which is the founder of ALÁRA and NOC in Lagos. Reni, welcome to Tomorrow.
Thank you. So great to be here.
To Tomorrow. Okay, so we're talking about the perfect African.
Yes.
To just put some context, and why I thought about this one was, I remember when I was growing up, like yesterday. So finished my first degree, did a second degree, and then looking for a job, can't find a job, and really didn't want to come back to Nigeria. And I was just thinking about all the things I was going to miss that wasn't in Nigeria. I was thinking about, the food, the movies, even my clothes. Where am I going to get my clothes? And today everything is different. I mean, like from my children, they can't wait to come back to Nigeria. So today is a completely different mindset and perspective from yesterday. And I remember, let's go back to, I remember quite a few years ago, when you came to my office and you showed me this design, of ALÁRA. It looked like a spaceship, because it had, everything was completely different.
Yes.
And I was thinking, hey, this is great, but I was just thinking, execution. And today, ALÁRA is there, and ALÁRA is doing absolutely great things. So, I mean, for you, what was like yesterday for you? And then really, what was really behind? I know you told me, but I can't remember. When I think about it now, that ALÁRA concept, it's now about an identity. It's more than ALÁRA. It's actually an identity of who we are and who we want to be.
Yes. Yeah, you asked me. Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here on Tomorrow. Today. Yeah, it's a big question when you say, what was my yesterday?
Yeah.
And you sort of prefaced your own conversation with your own yesterday was about not wanting to come home, finishing school, and stuff like that. So mine was opposite. I never had that.
Yes.
I always wanted to come back home because really, when I was growing up, I learned a lot about our culture. Because my dad had so many jobs, not that many, but first of all, I was born in the UK. We came back. My dad became a lecturer in the University of Lagos, and then he became a commissioner in Western State of Nigeria. And at some point, he was commissioner for chieftaincy affairs. And I think that moment when you're commissioner for chieftaincy affairs and you're in Western Nigeria, it's like many little towns and cities, because Western Nigeria was quite big. So we spent a lot of my sort of emerging years going into interiors, traveling, saying all these places that were maybe remote to people that live in Lagos. But for me, it was my own reality. And everywhere, if he would travel, he would take us along. We'd just get in the car. And so we learned a lot. And that was my own formative years, was understanding the culture and understanding people that were like me. So when I traveled, I never thought of ever staying. For me, there was nothing to stay for. I just felt very much sort of a pull from home. But when I got home, I realized that most people didn't feel that way, and most people didn't see what I saw as potential. So that was after I finished my degree and I came home, and I was working as a lawyer. After I'd worked as a lawyer for a few years. I decided that my mom used to also lecture at the Yaba College of Technology, even though she was business administration, but that was our premier art school at the time. And every time we'd come from start school, University of Lagos, and wait for her to finish work before we went home. But literally, it was the art school. So I was surrounded by artists and surrounded by people who were making things, fashion artists, painters, sculptors. So that was my kind of if you merge that with my original sort of upbringing, you can see that I literally
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was working as a lawyer. I loved it, actually. I didn't mind it. I was working with my dad and I really loved it. I love research.
Yeah.
And I was a commercial lawyer and I could literally be reading for hours. But I also felt a pull from the creative aspects of it. So I decided that, you know what, I'm going to pursue it. So I started off with having like studio sessions where I would call any creative person I knew. Young, some people were still in school, and I'd say, let's sit down and make things. And we started making things. And then I thought, okay, let me see what everybody else is doing in different parts of Africa. And then I started traveling, and I realized that it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we do that people don't know. And I just never bought into this idea that the West was better than us. I just never bought into it. And it's not to say we know, like, it's not to say Nigeria gave me any reason
Yeah.
to think that in particular, but I just never bought into it. I just felt that our essence had not been discovered, and that if it was discovered and it was platformed, then it would be magical and it would be amazing. And I just had that in my mind. So having traveled to different parts of Africa, I was really certain by the time I came back. By that time, I had worked in law for 10 years. And then I decided that I wanted to pursue a creative sort of entrepreneurship of some sort. And that's how ALÁRA started. So that was my yesterday.
Okay. Excellent. I mean, like, I know you said like a few things that I think were very interesting, like, and I think it's just looking at the world through your own lens,
Yes.
coming from a different, like, being schooling from a different environment.
Yes.
So this is, I went to school here. I know these people,
Yes.
but where I'm coming from is actually much better. It's much richer. There's more opportunity
Yes.
to do things, to do great magic.
Yes.
Yeah. And so like when I even think of like coming back, and when I look at why banking as well, because I remember when I came back to Nigeria. I came back to Nigeria where there were no credit cards. Like I went to university and they gave you a credit card. ATMs were there, and then you come back here and suddenly you're back to the dark ages.
Yes.
It's a saving slip.
Yes.
And so they only catered for high net worth individuals
Yes.
and big businesses. Individuals were savings account. And so I think part of that opportunity was like we can actually build and design using technology
Yes.
to do it much better.
Yes.
So like today, just like it's like I'm proud of our banking environment.
Yes.
But I think we're doing so many things and we're going to do so much more
Yeah.
if we get the infrastructure right. And so I think that is also I think having a reference point also helps. So like yes, I'm happy I'm back in Nigeria.
Yes.
I'm happy that now there are many things like for me today, there are many things now that are going right from those things that actually matter, those social things like music, like
Yes.
food,
Yes.
like clothing, right? So like I'm proud of my so and all that forms identity, and it also makes it easy for Chidi and Adeze to say, I want to come back to Nigeria.
Yes.
I want to be part of this. I don't want to be part of that other.
Yes.
It's good. So they're taking the best of both worlds.
Yes, which is a great advantage.
Yeah. So, so from so how do you see where we're going to? So, like, you have ALÁRA, and we have like, how do we scale the ALÁRA concept across? First of all, let me just start with Nigeria first. I think, or even Lagos first. Before, how do we scale that? Because I think that also is what drives people. Those are the kind of things that drive Dirty December. You know, the great ALÁRA New Year's party.
Yes.
The great and the different things that you do, like promoting and using your platform.
Yes.
To scale different artists.
Yes.
Artists as
Yes.
well. So how do we do that in your books?
When I started ALÁRA, it was actually to inspire. And I think that if you think about where we are now compared to where we were 10 years ago, what I was doing was saying, guys, we can inspire you to value what you have. And we were not specific about how, but we wanted to imbibe a certain element of pride, cultural pride, sense of self, sense of self-importance in people, especially in young people. And to do that, you had to feel great about your culture. You have to feel great about yourself. and for us to impart the knowledge and say, look at what we are, based on historically what we've done, contemporarily what you see, what you might not have seen before, but look at it. In doing that, a young person says to themselves, actually, there's a lot in my culture to be proud of, and I should be proud.
Yes.
And so that was the initial, plan. It wasn't like we knew. I didn't exactly know how to get where I want to go, but I just knew that I wanted to get there, and I needed to start. And the point of starting was to inspire people and to get them to understand that you have a lot to be proud of.
So, Reni, you know what my concern, let me tell you my concern, and I'll talk from my own perspective.
Yes.
And I really get it. So, like, when I reflect on my journey
Yes.
in financial services and how I was taught and how I was grounded and how that is helping me today
Yes.
to connect even with tomorrow.
Yes.
In terms of, I know the fundamentals, and you talked about, being interested and doing lots of research,
Yes.
so that you could actually appreciate even better. And
Yes.
so that is what, and I think there's this, and so like when I look at financial services and people in financial services today, I'm just thinking, well, we need more robots because I think that rigor of understanding is no longer what happens now. But I think that whole experience for me helped me to connect with, should I say, my father's generation, but also because it was also, you needed to leverage on technology. You needed to connect with the younger people who were, should I say, the drivers and learners. So I think we're at that, I call it like a straddle where that generation that is connecting the past and the future.
Yes.
But there are not many people. And so what's going to replace that? And so when I think of how you got to ALÁRA, there's history and heritage that's helping you, like, think of how you can bring that to the future. And so how do you preserve that? How do you make sure that it's sustainable? And that's what I even think about like people.
Yes.
How are you going to get the right people to drive that mission that we want? To create more people that are focused on what I think, trying to make this a perfect place for us, for a generation like a generation.
I mean, I think you already see it happening, because if you think about the young people in the creative industries in Nigeria now, and you just think about what's happening, you think about food, you think about clothes, you think about music.
Yes.
It's already moving.
I love that. But see, do you know, like music, you're right. So music is a good example.
Yes.
Music is moving, but you don't need the infrastructure of Nigeria.
You don't need it.
You don't need it.
No, it will move anyway.
It will move anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, the other bit that actually, the foods, the clothing, especially the clothing. I'm forgetting, because the clothing is actually really exciting and really represent.
Yeah.
The infrastructure limits what we can do. So we're like small scale farming as far as
Absolutely.
in that. And so, like, for me, it's like for me, it's like, I think if all these like new designers that we're having, right?
Yes.
Could scale. Look, summer next year, you see people wearing more African clothes.
Yes.
Than, in fact, you see foreigners wearing African clothes.
Yeah, I think it will happen. Yeah. I think it will happen.
When?
Yeah, I think we forget that this is a really young industry, and that it takes a lot to build it. So there's a burst of creativity now, because you see people able to create so much. Like, you just see things popping. People are making things, doing things. It's like I always say, I think every Nigerian has a superpower. Like, they can do things.
Yes.
But there's no structure around it, and there's no structure below it. So it means that you have this burst of creativity and creative people, but there's no longevity in the industry because we don't have structure and we don't have a base. Fine. As long as we know what the problems are, it should not stop us from growing. It should make us find a way through. Understanding that.
That sounds depressing.
Not at all. I actually think it's not depressing. I think that the depressing part is when you feel we have to run before we can walk.
Yes.
I think that's where it's depressing. What is also super interesting about today's world is that the path to learning does not have to be long.
No. Okay, yes.
So,
Agree with you.
like, literally, people can become photographers
Very quickly.
in 6 months.
Yes, or less even.
Like, so the creative industry is not that complex in the sense that if we really dedicate time to creating real structures, like I'm very much into education and how people learn. I'm interested in that structure. Okay, because I see everything in this industry. Like I see the fashion industry and understand that, okay, guys, everybody's sewing things, making things, selling things, and there's dynamism, there's all that. But it can't last because there's nothing underneath. The schools are nothing, and unless we do something about schooling. So there's also production. So there's levels to it. What does it look like when we improve production as well as improve the sort of schools, the learning systems? And for me, that's what I see. I don't see it as problematic. I see it as solvable, but I see it as in steps. So for me now, the most important thing for me now is education. Like I'm like, okay, if we do not start educating people properly, like we're not, our creativity is going nowhere. And also production. Yes, we have to think about production and how we scale. But we don't have to follow anybody's model. And I think that's the problem, where people think we have to become China, or we have to become India, or we don't have to do that.
I think that would be a mistake. So so education is important.
Yes.
In fact, I love that. Because education, and for me, like everybody thinks education is like structures. Or there's a way you're going to educate, right? So like for me, I just think, okay, and if we really want to like really project and think like widely, right? I mean, I think even the format of education for what we need to support this great idea is, we have to rethink that whole thing.
Yes.
And then we also have to rethink it from a cultural perspective, because, like in my last show, we were talking about that when I was young, I had to be a doctor, engineer, or artist, or lawyer, or else I'm a failure. It is great. After spending all that money, how can you do that? What will Uncle John say?
Exactly.
And so like now it's so weird. But I think fundamental education is important, but after that, like
there's
many different ways. And so I think that education, it starts with, in fact, maybe from the drivers, from the leadership, from the parents, right? So what is an education, especially for a Nigerian context?
Yes.
And I also think, especially from the fact that AI is going to take half of the jobs that we thought was good.
Exactly.
So creativity now becomes a premium. But how do we now put a structure to that, to create that? Because I think that is going to help drive that African identity that we think of, because we're not copying. So like we started talking about how, I started talking about how people like, if you didn't have an English accent, you were not well educated, or like you had to have an English accent. People travel for 2 months and they develop one. Or they wear English clothes, or that's acceptability. Even in Nigeria today, it's either a suit or a kaftan for formal wear, but I mean, which is like a move compared to other countries, and so having to speak in your Nigerian accent with pride in England is actually one that says, okay, I'm proud of my identity. I don't need to be like you. But then again, that education, that orientation, in fact, it's that orientation from a family leadership or perspective is one that we need to look at from that whole Nigeria perspective.
No, say that again. Sorry.
So what I'm saying is that when I look at education, what type of education is acceptable?
Okay.
And so we have to look at it not from what is that we were doing before. But where do we need to get to? So like what is the, so like if you look at the curriculum. And we look at, let's take music. How do we encourage more musicians, or more people to like, how do we build that industry so we can actually benefit from it as a country? Right? Today, Nigerian music has been successful because we didn't rely on Nigerian infrastructure.
But we're not benefiting from it.
But we're not benefiting from it. Exactly. So how do we build that? How do we build that infrastructure, starting from education, where there's an industry around it?
Because
it's not just about, it's not key, because there's local, there's so much untapped
Yes.
Music in local areas that we're not even benefiting from, even from a Nigerian perspective.
Yeah. So it's no longer just about learning music. For the responsibility that people like us have is to see what the industry around it looks like. Because I think there's a way that I think we have a habit of, and I say that I call it something that there's a word that I use, that the access to audience is too easy. So if I just start singing, I will just have an audience because maybe I have social media or whatever, but there's no critical discussion around what I'm doing. So we don't have the industry. What does it mean where there's either criticism? What does it mean where there's marketing or advertising? Or what does it mean where, there's publications that talk about types of music? There's nothing like that. So in the end, you're creating something that doesn't really have substance. And you risk not having a good quality industry. And so I think, apart from thinking about the talent learning, we have to think about people around who are going to manage the talent or who are going to see the direction in which the talent goes. That learning as well is important.
Plus the packaging as well.
And the packaging. So that learning is also, learning marketing is important.
Yes.
Learning music business is important. And, and I think that the time when you have like Maven Records and people like that who've been at it out from sheer determination and, and experience, have now become big, but originally it wasn't like anybody in the group really had the qualification. But I think that that's one in a million. You're not going to have many successful businesses like that. And I think that if we have, when the industry has an idea, you're able to look at it, have an overview of where all the industries that actually connect and make the music business actually function and thrive. When we plug into how we educate people in those areas, then I think that we have a more sustainable industry.
So, Ren, I talk about Maven Records and do you think part of our problem, and education is also about reading and telling stories?
Yes.
Do you think we tell enough of our stories of how we got there? So if you ask, okay, how did Maven Records become Maven Records?
Yes.
What would their story? Because definitely, I would think that success comes from lots of failures.
Yes, and I think they will tell you that they've had many.
Yeah, they had many.
Yes.
But it's not public. But then again, you see, like part of that whole, making the world British. I remember one of British philosophy was like, we have to make the world British, right?
Yes.
And they did that through propaganda, communication.
Yes, branding.
Yeah, branding, exactly. Yeah. And so like that whole branding about, you can, and then America is that you can make it big.
Yes.
Right? So that's why you have all these immigrants, all branding. But here, like, what is our story? Right? So like, we have many stories, but they are like folk stories, word of mouth. And so, and so you have, and that's part of that whole, and we are storytellers, but I think there's storytelling that's word of mouth, but there's now, we're in a digital age where we have to document, but there are many stories going on.
Yeah, we have to be more strategic about telling our stories, about archiving experiences, and just archiving and also telling stories. I think we're not strategic enough.
Yes.
We don't naturally understand the value of it, so we don't tell it that much.
Yeah, we don't. It's not automatic. So like like when I go to knock and eat something that is a fusion.
Yes.
I know it's a fusion.
Yes.
But something like how did like sometimes I just wonder how was some food created?
Yes.
What is the story behind that? Because so like you now get in touch with it's like you're reading a book and you know about the author.
Yes.
It's about like what
now it's kind of my favorite pastime, archiving recipes and talking to really old people about how they arrived at a recipe, simply because I realized that there's so much depth in it. Like just in being starting knock and just researching and just like even traveling to Ibadan or even Abeokuta, I'm like, guys, this is a minefield.
Yeah, so there's golden nuggets.
This is a minefield. And when people are just like talking about either just abula and jollof rice, I'm like, guys, like you don't know what exists.
Exactly.
And I think that, and then if you think about Southwest Nigeria, you think about the East, you think about the North, and then that's Nigeria. And then you think, and that's why I'm like, when people say but this can end and this can, I'm like, we have too much.
Too much. I mean,
Like, I don't see the end.
like I remember, like, okay, my grandmother is dead now, but there's one soup, right? Like uba soup, right? That she used to make.
Yes.
And that making it making it with firewood,
Yes.
right? And the stove,
Yes.
right? That whole flavor and
Yeah.
that, and like I can smell the food.
Yes.
And it is authentic to my taste buds. It's not alien. So like I can never get tired of it because it's like part of that's how I was. That's how I grew up.
Yes.
I was born. Yeah, English food, like I might get tired of it, but this one is like,
can't.
and you can I can see how it was made, right?
Yes.
We used to go home for summer, and then you see them. They will go to and everything was fresh. They will go to the farm. They will get the fresh. They will pound it. Everything was just decked and cleared.
And that's what we're trying to hatch and recreate. And also get people to understand the importance of it. That if you think about Japanese food and how they've actually packaged it, like before, I think you have to be like studying for 10 years before you can become a sushi chef.
Yeah.
And literally open a sushi restaurant. Like basically, if you want to be a K-pop singer, for instance, you have to go to school for like 5 years before you can become a K-pop singer. Like people have put structures around things that.
But then, don't you just love that? Like we live in a world today where one day somebody is in 2 seconds is a professor, is a pastor, is a priest, he's expert in this. But time is something that gives you experience and exposure, and
That's what I'm saying. That we just don't have. We have decided that the access to platform, access to audience is too quick, and it's not. There's not enough. What's the word? There's not enough discussion around it. Nobody is watching anybody do anything. There are no standards like organization that's saying no, you can't do that or you can do it. There's nothing. So everybody's just doing everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like so frustrating because I'm like, this can be magic if you do it properly. You sort of document it and do it. It can be magic for you in 20 years' time. But if you just use it and throw it out, then it becomes nothing.
Yep.
And then, so I'm just saying that these things, these methods and these things that we see that we have traditionally, there's a way we can use them, archive them, and also spread them for the future. And put structures around them that make people understand the importance of them. The Japanese have decided that their food is important, that their methods are important. They're big on fermentation. They're big on all these things. So are we, guys. So are we.
Honestly, and that is such a very interesting concept because you're actually adding value to that skill.
Yes.
By saying that before you get this kind of rating or accreditation or call yourself a chef or sushi chef, you must go through a journey.
Yes.
You must go through that journey.
Yes.
And going through that journey, you will learn things. You will fail.
Yes.
You will succeed. And you get and here it's
and you master it.
Yeah, so here exactly. So it's not too like you master it.
Yes.
This is where we're and so like you build authenticity and trust around that and create
excellence.
And excellence.
Yeah.
Exactly. And here we have, like I always say, like we're very gifted, but gifting can only take you so far.
That's what I'm saying.
Structure, framework, and then just that barrier to entry. No, there has to be some barrier to entry. It has to be a bit hard.
It can't be that easy. It can't be just get up. Let me just put this together and.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody in Nigeria is a chef. Everybody sews.
Do you know?
Everybody just say, I'm starting a new brand. I just like that. I'm thinking, what are you doing differently? How did you start? Oh, let's get a few tailors, and then we'll just start doing it.
Like people if you talk about Abula, for instance, at Knock, I was just telling somebody yesterday. I said, do you know how many different Abula makers we went through before we decided what is the actual one we want for Knock and why? And because Abula is not new, it's really a very traditional dish. And we worked so hard to look for like people who are making this for a long time. My mom's from Ibadan. We went to Ibadan. We literally researched. Even we actually also went to Abeokuta because we also eat it in Abeokuta. And we put people through a lot before we decided, okay, let's go with this person who will be the teacher for a group of people who she's older, who will, exchange this skill over a period of, say, 6 months. So, for instance, we have a NOC where, okay, they're teaching the next group of people for the next 6 months. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So now, for the NOC kitchen, we have established practices which you must follow. You can't just come in, they can't just hire you yesterday and you say, oh, I'm going to make the abula. It's impossible. You can't do that in NOC. Otherwise, the hand changes. So I just think that it's our responsibility to keep doing things like that, to archive our traditional recipes, to find a way to transfer that to the new generation in a way that preserves the authenticity of it, the essence of it. Yeah, and then, as it grows in the future, people can decide that they want to play around it, but they must first master the original recipe.
So, final question. So, if I asked you, what is your perfect African?
Oh, that's a good
That should be, yeah. So tomorrow, I frame with the context, of how, if I think of, let me think of Chizara, who is my youngest,
Yes.
So, when she's my age,
Yes.
right? What's my age? How is Africa going? What is her context in an African environment? And I think for me, it's like you've actually nailed down on a few things where, for me, I think it's one, get as much exposure as possible. First of all, but knowing exactly where you're going to end up. And that exposure is, yes, a bit of just understand the Europeans, right?
Yes.
And the Western world.
Yes.
But I think one thing which you've done and which shows is also understand Africa a bit more.
Yes, know Africa.
Know Africa, yes, exactly. Know Africa from that whole culture, food.
Yes.
Because it's that fusion that actually gives that essence of being African. And I think now, with a bit of technology, you can actually visit some places without actually visiting some places.
Yeah, I think learning is a big part of it. And I think that I've always thought that
and I'm thinking from an education perspective, because in Africa we learn about the whites.
Yes, but we don't learn about each other.
We don't learn about each other. If we learn about each other and the wonders, then we might start thinking that we have to break down these borders of visa for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm going to correct that, because I think more specifically Nigerians don't learn about anybody else.
Yes.
A lot of the other Africans know a lot more about Nigerians and other countries than we do.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think we have to learn about each other. I think we have to learn about what our problems are, actual problems are. And I think each of us has to understand what we need to break down to be able to be unified Africans. Because without being unified, we cannot compete with the world. And I think it's very important for us to understand that. Because the world has gone so far away from us that we need to frog leap. And to do that, we need to be together, both politically, in policy, in commercially, socially. Yes. We need to understand that all these kind of, I think it was things like ECOWAS, all these things, African Union and stuff like that. African Union apparently is still being funded by the West, which does not make sense. Yes. But I think that there has to be a concrete way of learning more about each other and understanding that it's only by being together that we can actually conquer. Because each of us can try, but what does it look like where Africans connect to each other and they connect to their diaspora? Yes. And when I mean their diaspora, I mean African Americans, but also I mean the Caribbean world. Yes. Because we've tried to associate with others, we've tried to associate with the West, like us as Africans, we all have bits of that we're associating. But what does it look like when we decide to come together as a block? As a block, exactly. That is one block. The other block is also maybe the global South. What does that look like when we decide that this is the unit that we should be working with? Personally, I always had an affiliation to the East. Yes. Yes. Japanese. Yes. Because we have similarity in culture. Yes, same. And if I would say, they represent the culture that we had before. Yes. But we lost. Yes. And they've preserved that culture through the ages. Yes. And that's something that has actually been a rock foundation for them. That sushi story is great because yes, you want to cook, right? Yes. But for you to cook, this is what you have to do. You have to go through it. And so it now becomes a brand. Yes. Right? A sushi chef, right? Yes. And I think that was even what we had before, where
before you do certain things, you
Yeah.
must go through time. Now it's like,
Like nobody wants to teach.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, nobody wants to teach. People
Yeah.
don't want to learn and people don't want to teach. So it's kind of like, but I think that if we,
or we're not putting enough value to teaching.
that's
We're not putting enough value to chefs. We're not putting
Exactly.
enough value to these certain industries, right?
Exactly.
That in other places are well respected,
Yes.
and we don't respect.
Yes.
Well respected, and in our own context, we can actually do this much. We actually need this much more. We need more chefs. We need more of this.
Yes.
We need
Culture
more
is
of
our
this.
capital now.
Culture is our capital, exactly.
Yeah.
Like people are
Our capital.
our capital.
And we have an abundance of people. So an abundance of young people. So literally we're in a position where we can actually direct what the future looks like.
Yes,
Because
definitely.
all we have to do is just take a look at what do we do with our youth? How do we channel their talent and their energy? Because that's what's going to define our future.
Man, I don't know what. Anyway, all I know is that tomorrow, from an African perspective, it can be
Yes.
sweet. But like you say, we have to put the structures in place.
Yeah, it will be sweet.
Yes, it will be sweet. Yes. Let's see what happens in Dirty December this year.
It's going to be very dirty. A lot of people coming.
And non-Africans as well, which
Yes,
is non-Nigerians, which is actually great.
But it's great. I think it's great. I think that December is great. I think that they're different. People are always complaining that, oh, why is it that this is what Lagos will be known for? I'm like, that's okay. I mean, I think Cancun is known for partying. Ibiza is known for partying.
Yes.
Like, why can't we be known for partying? If that's where it starts, let it start there.
And Brazil was known for their carnival.
Yes.
But Brazil is actually one of the financially advanced places. So in bringing people into the country,
Yes.
payments need to be made.
Yes.
And I think Dirty December is what is actually driving people from a financial service to say, okay, how can we get global good standards that
Yes.
people coming in would use and accept and trust?
Yes. And it pushes.
In the food industry too, it's going to be so it drives just bringing people into
At this time of the year, for instance, for us, we're like, okay, we have to have everything on point. Everything has to be this. Everything has to be that. We have to get certain people through the door. So I think like I think it's great for our industry and it's great for the city.
And in a little way, I think because of that, right, that whole the Nigerian factor is beginning to diminish because you now know that you have people who know that if they can do it just the way it's supposed to be done, they'll wipe out the people like who are just mediocrity is excellence.
Yes, and the Nigerian factor will just fade away because everybody is interested in preserving their own. That's capitalism. Everybody wants to succeed, and to succeed, you have to change things. I think,
Great. Well, thank you very much. That was very interesting. Oh my God, I can't believe that the time is almost over 30 minutes. I was looking at the time.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. So good to be here, and thank you for asking me.